We hear from people who are just fed up with all of the increasing taxes from Ottawa, the carbon tax especially. It's driving up the cost of everything and is really contributing to the affordability issues we are seeing across the country. It's why our United Conservative government suspended the collection of the provincial fuel tax. That one measure has helped save Albertans around $10 every time they fill up their vehicles. It's one of the key reasons Alberta has the lowest inflation rate of any province in Canada. If re-elected, our United Conservative team will ensure that fuel tax holiday continues for the rest of 2023. Alberta's United Conservatives remain focused on keeping life affordable for Albertans. It's why we're committed to lowering personal income taxes and helping families keep up to $1,500 every year in their bank accounts, keeping business taxes low to grow our economy and create jobs, and ensuring we're providing support to the most vulnerable. As we know, many seniors are on fixed incomes and can use some additional affordability measures to help them. So I'm pleased to invite our United Conservative leader, Danielle Smith, to share details about how a re-elected UCP government will help keep life affordable for Alberta seniors.
Well, thanks, Rajan. Before I begin, I just would like to let you know a little bit about the flow of my day for the foreseeable future, perhaps until the end of the emergency declaration, which is scheduled to go until June the 3rd. We expect hot weather to be in effect for the next number of days. I think they're calling it a heat dome, which is an unusual weather event. I think we saw it in 2021, and we'll be seeing that weather event peak on Friday and continue on until Tuesday. So there'll be a lot of additional activity taking place over the next few days that we need to have an eye on. So the Emergency Management Committee of Cabinet is likely to continue meeting. We meet every morning from 8:30 until 10 and make decisions as needed, and we'll continue doing that through the course of the coming weeks. We needed to have this decision-making ability to make decisions to deal with the emergency. I want to put some things in context for you. There'll be a full briefing later today at 3 p.m. So because my days are starting a little bit later, this is part of the reason why we've moved our press availabilities now until 11:30, which we'll continue to do on an as-needed basis. But as of yesterday, there are 77 active wildfires with 23 classified as out of control. 17,386 people have had to evacuate their homes. On average, just to put this into perspective, over the past 5 years between January and May, by this time, we normally only have 546 hectares burned. But this year, that number is 410,441 hectares. So that gives you some idea of why this is such an unprecedented and extraordinary event. But we're deeply proud of the dedication and resilience of our first responders, communities, First Nations, and Métis settlements. Because this risk remains elevated, particularly in a few key communities, I will confirm, we sent this out this morning, that the Canadian Armed Forces have begun to move out to support Alberta while we were fighting these unprecedented fires. They'll be deploying across Alberta this week to Grand Prairie, to Fox Creek, and to Drayton Valley areas. They can support our firefighting efforts in mop-up operations and basic firefighting duties, airlift, and engineering support. We have also coordinated with the Government of Canada to match donations with the Canadian Red Cross to support disaster relief efforts. So both governments will match every dollar donated to the Canadian Red Cross 2023 Alberta Fires Appeal. So for every $1 donated, it will become $3 to support those affected by wildfires. Donated funds will provide relief and recovery experts, emergency services to the Red Cross, financial assistance for immediate needs, and other essential services that not covered by the federal or provincial governments. You can donate to the 2023 Alberta Fires Appeal. Do so at redcross.ca. You can also call 1-800-418-1111. And again, for up-to-date information, go to alberta.ca/emergency or call 310-4455. Later today, we will have a 3 p.m. availability with government officials. Public Safety Minister Mike Ellis will be at that, so you can ask further questions then. I'll be leaving for Grand Prairie this evening so that I can do an aerial survey of the 3 most impacted areas. As you know, Fox Lake has had an evacuation of over 3,000 of their residents, and they've had a number of structures that have been destroyed. Same with the Sturgeon Lake Cree Nation. They've had a number of structures destroyed. We'll be meeting and talking with the chief. And then East Prairie Métis Settlement has also had a number of structures destroyed, and all 3 of those communities have been displaced. So we wanted to just see on the ground what that looks like, what their resettlement will be, and what we can do to help. So I'll be happy to give more update on that when I return. I'll be out tonight and then back again tomorrow after the review. All right. Now, on to the announcement of today. As I mentioned, I'd be happy to take questions on any of these things. I just felt like because we did these 2 press releases this morning that you probably would want to know about them. But thanks, Rajan, for the introduction, and thank you all for being with us today. Over the past 4 years, our United Conservative government has worked tirelessly to attract investment and jobs, build up our healthcare system, make our communities safer, and make life more affordable for all Albertans. And just last week, I announced the UCP's Alberta Job Growth and Diversification Strategy. This strategy will ensure Alberta's economy continues to grow, creates quality jobs, and attracts skilled workers and graduates. But while Alberta's economy booms, it seems like everything we need to live is getting more expensive. And while the inflation crisis has been hard on everyone, some have felt the effects more than others. For seniors who are often on fixed incomes, covering monthly expenses can be difficult, especially when inflation is high. When the price of everything goes up but your income doesn't, you can only tighten your belt so much. Every extra dollar you would need to cover the grocery or utility bills means less time to spend on other necessities and quality time with the people that you love. Our United Conservative government has understood the pressures that Alberta's seniors are facing, and we want to support you. That's why we launched the Affordability Action Plan in 2022 to provide real relief to thousands of Alberta seniors. That included $100 a month from January to June to help out with monthly bills. It included suspending the fuel tax, which we, a re-elected UCP government, will extend to the end of the year, saving drivers money every single time they fill up the tank. Also included $500 in electricity rebates when energy inflation was driving up bills, and permanent natural gas price protection for home heating. We have the opportunity to do more. That's why I was proud to sign a no tax hike guarantee, pledging that a re-elected UCP government will not raise personal or business taxes. And just last week, we announced a tax cut for all Albertans, including a new tax bracket and permanent indexation of personal income taxes. That tax cut will mean Albertans, including Alberta seniors, will keep up to $760 in their pockets, or $1,500 for a family. A re-elected UCP government would use these measures and more to help seniors and ensure that they are not overburdened with rising costs. And today, we are taking that support another step further. A re-elected government will reduce costs for seniors by bringing in a 25% seniors discount. This discount will apply to all personal registry services, camping fees, and driver's medical exams. That means that when seniors go to their local registry to have personal services like their driver's license or vehicle registration renewed, take a road test, get title certificates or birth certificates, those fees will be 25% cheaper. When they go to book a provincial camping spot for the summer to enjoy Alberta's beautiful backyard with their loved ones, the fees will be 25% less expensive. And when they need a driver's medical exam to make sure they can keep their license and their independence, that exam will be 25% more affordable. Every dollar saved through the seniors discount is another dollar back in their pockets that they can use on necessities and the things that matter to them. Let me be clear, Alberta's United Conservatives are focused on keeping life affordable for seniors and for all Albertans. Unfortunately, we cannot say the same for the NDP. From 2015 to 2019, their irresponsible spending led to higher taxes and fees across the board, and if given the chance this year, they will do it all over again. Rachel Notley's NDP raised taxes and fees 97 times, many of which she didn't campaign on. In the first budget of 2015, Rachel Notley's NDP raised camping fees, electricity rates at campsites, dump station fees, and fees on many more services. Their 2016 and 2018 budgets also raised fees for land titles, museums, and campsites for the second time. This was all in addition to the widespread impacts of their disastrous economic policies that chased investors away in droves, taking jobs and skilled workers along with them. The NDP ran a deficit in all 4 years of their term and hiked taxes by $3.4 billion in their 4 years as government. Their ideological-driven agenda is simply too expensive and too risky for Albertans to gamble on. When Albertans are concerned about affordability, Rachel Notley's answer is to increase the amount that they're paying. That is not the type of government we need. Seniors want the stability that a united Conservative government would provide by continuing to keep Alberta affordable, ensuring our economy stays strong, and making our streets and communities safe. That's the type of leadership that Alberta needs. That's the type of government that the United Conservatives would provide. We are committed to delivering on our promises to move Alberta forward, creating a better, brighter future for everyone. Thank you, and I'd now like to invite Pamela Rath, and after that we'll take some questions.
Thank you, Danielle, and good morning, everyone. I'm Pamela Rath, United Conservative candidate in the beautiful riding of Calgary Mountain View. Our United Conservative Party has a responsible plan for spending, growth, and stability that enables the province to support the needs of all Albertans. This is in stark contrast to what the NDP have planned. We simply cannot forget that the last time they were in office, they raised taxes and fees on Albertans 97 times. They also brought in a provincial carbon tax, effectively taking money from Albertans for simply heating their homes and driving to work. And now, they plan to make the same bad choices again by raising taxes, driving away investment, and costing Albertans their jobs.
Hospitals are not for sale. Hospitals are not for sale. Hospitals are not for sale. Hospitals are not for sale.
We saw your video about buying hospitals. Check it out. We've got a great offer.
Yeah, this is a great opportunity for everybody in Alberta.
Madam Premier, anything to say? Madam Premier? No? You had lots to say about this not so long ago. Madam Premier, hospital for sale? Anything?
Yeah, you had a whole show to talk about this.
We will not sell our arms and legs for hospitals. Hospitals should be public.
They're going to cost us an arm and a leg when you sell it, though, aren't they?
What the NDP's first question is going to be, at least. So I'll see if Pamela wants to finish her comments, and then we'll resume.
I really do, actually. And now, they plan to make the same bad choices again by raising taxes, driving away investment, and costing Alberta their jobs. Rachel Notley's NDP is just too expensive, and we simply cannot afford them. Alberta seniors deserve to be supported. It's why our United Conservative Party is proud to have announced these new supports to help seniors here in Calgary and across Alberta save around $20 million in government fees every year. Thank you, and I would like to turn it over to Becca to facilitate questions.
I think we're just waiting for Becca to get back in the room here. I may as well answer that first question. Sure. So, look, one of the things that our government did when we got elected was that we began a process of using chartered surgical centers, which are doctor-run surgical centers. They're run by doctors. The doctors bill our government. They are paid directly. No one pays out of pocket for treatment. It's exactly the way doctor's offices work. You go and see your doctor, they bill the government, and you never pay out of pocket. And in fact, I can confirm that under a UCP government with our healthcare guarantee, no one will ever pay out of pocket for a family doctor or for hospital services. I think that activists like we just saw here and the NDP keep trying to confuse the issue. They are completely different issues. Having somebody who sets up a specialized charter surgical center to do specialized services actually saves money, reduces wait times, and for the people I've spoken with, it's a really positive experience for them. So just know where we're at right now. We have 300,000 or so surgeries being done in the province. Most of them are at public hospitals, as it should be, and that's great. It's part of the reason why we have an enhanced surgical initiative where we have gone out to look at the operating rooms that have been out of service and repaired them and upgraded them so they could be. One of the first things I asked Dr. John to do when he took over as official administrator at Alberta Health Services was to do that review for me. They found 55 operating rooms in our public AHS facilities, and many of them can be brought back into service. That's our first priority. However, we also know that we have surgical backlogs. When I came in, we had 39,000 people on our waiting list who had been waiting longer than medically recommended, and that is not acceptable. So we have a number of charter surgical centers that is working at clearing that backlog. We have 60,000 of our total 300,000 surgeries being done now in these charter surgical centers. I guess we should presume from the antics that we just saw that the NDP would shut them down. They would shut down 60,000 surgeries, which would double our wait lists overnight. They would have no plan for how they would be able to increase the capacity, and they would impact patient care. That is the kind of irresponsible, ideological decision-making that we see on the part of the NDP. We are going to make sure that we work with our private sector partners so that they can deliver the services that people need. We can clear the surgical backlog, and we can also make sure no one ever pays out of pocket. And I can tell you it's working. As I mentioned, when I became Premier, this was one of my top priorities. Dr. John identified there were 39,000 people waiting longer than medically necessary. Not only are we able every week to keep up with the number of surgeries needed, it's about 6,000 to 6,500, but we've also started clearing that backlog. We're now down to 30,000 people. We're clearing at a rate of 3,000 people a month. By this time next year, it will be completely eliminated, and we will be the first province in the country to do so. We do not want to disrupt that process. We do not want to stop the ability of all of our operators to provide this kind of service. It's too important for patients. And so there's your answer.
Thanks, Premier. I hope those folks were able to tune in and listen to your answer. Let's get back to questions. One question from the floor, please, your name, outlet, and then we'll head to the phone lines. Go ahead.
Adam Sos for Rebel News. First off, I just wanted to thank you and the UCP for your willingness to answer questions from all media outlets. It's not only the protesters who are providing semantics, the NDP are providing their share. Speaking of the NDP and some in the media, they seem hell-bent on turning this campaign into a tabloid-style American election where leaders' personalities, particularly yours, rather than the content of their party's policies are the primary focus. Why do you suspect that is?
I think the NDP don't have ideas. Everything I've seen, it's either gainsaying what we do, saying, oh, we'll do that too, we'll just do a little bit more, or it's re-announcing old policy announcements, or saying that they'll continue on with policies we've already passed. And if you want to continue with the UCP government, then you should vote for the UCP. So that is why I think that they simply have not, they don't have any positive ideas for the future. They don't have any creative ideas about how to address the needs of Albertans, whereas we do. We've announced a health care guarantee. We've announced a tax guarantee. We're going to make sure that no taxes can be increased for personal or corporate income tax without a referendum. We've announced an 8% tax bracket now so that we can benefit our lowest income Albertans the most, but all families up to $1,500. We've announced that we are going to be doing foreign credentials recognition, auto-credentialing, which we've already seen some huge success in. 1,400 nurses have been announced that they have received the credentialing from the nursing college in the last month alone, which is more than we've seen in the last 2.5 years. We're already making progress. We're going to do so much more. We're going to have a graduation tax credit so that we can keep our graduates here, and we're also going to have an Alberta's calling tax credit so that we can continue to attract people from around the country and around the world. And today we're also announcing that we are going to make life more affordable for seniors, giving them a 25% tax cut or a rebate, 25% discount on registry services. So every time we come forward, we have positive ideas to announce that will make life better for Albertans. It will support job growth, it'll support the economy, it'll support affordability, and it will also help to improve our healthcare system. And they just are flat out of ideas, so they resort to personal attacks.
Great. Go ahead, Rick.
Rick Bell. Now that I'm in the Sun and the Herald, I'll say Postmedia. I'm really glad this morning because I was just about to renew my vehicle registration. So,
oh yeah, you're.
So
I forgot that you're over 65.
So some people are trying to hit me up for a beer after this is over.
Take them camping with you.
No, they don't want to go camping with me. I'm going to, you'll see I'm going to be slightly elastic with the rules because of today's antics. But my main question is about Mayor Gondek of Calgary is not happy. Some of her councillors are not happy because the province is appointing 3 members to the Calgary Police Commission. And I gather that's part of your overall public safety plan strategy. And they're concerned that they weren't consulted, that they weren't told, that they didn't get to vet it, that you didn't talk with the police commission first. They're basically just very, very upset. And they've even got so upset, 8 out of the 15 on council, they're not even going to pass a bylaw, which would just put their bylaw in line with your policy. So my question is, what do you think about the fact that the mayor and half of council are very upset with you over this issue of appointing Calgary Police Commission members? And by the way, now here's where I break the rules. Could you just tell us a little bit more about what you think when all of these outlets do a story on what just happened? What do you think Albertans should think of what happened? So I know I'm breaking the rules, but today was a day where I'm not the first person.
Okay, well, let me answer the first one. I'm disappointed that council is depicting it that way. I remember as we were contemplating these changes, I asked our Municipal Affairs Minister, Rebecca Schultz, directly to make sure that she reached out to all of the impacted councils and communities so that they knew what we were doing, so that they had the impact. We had done extensive consultation before, but I recognize that sometimes you get a changeover with the election and they might have been surprised. So I can confirm that Minister Rebecca Schultz did reach out and did inform them of what it is that we were doing. And part of the reason is we have a public safety crisis on our streets in Calgary and in Edmonton. And people tell me that they are afraid to go downtown. They're afraid to hang out downtown after dinner. They're afraid to take public transit. We're hearing every day about somebody who is subject to some kind of random attack. We've also just heard, sadly, in Ontario, more police officers killed in responding to a call. It's dangerous. And because it's dangerous, we need to get back to the kind of policing that I think that citizens of this city expect. They expect to be able to be safe when they walk their streets. We also know that there's some expertise that we could bring to bear in appointing our commissioners. And I'll tell you who they are. And this is I mean, I'm very proud of the 3 that we have appointed, because we felt that with the addiction and mental health crisis that we see in Calgary, that we needed to make sure that we had people with some lived experience about how to deal with those kind of calls so that they could help assess the police response to them. So Dr. Rob Tanguay is an internationally renowned addiction psychiatrist. He is one of our appointees. Kelly Ogle is an entrepreneur, but he also is trained at the Canadian Global Affairs Institute with the Canadian Centre for Strategic and Military Studies. He has a deep interest in how we do public safety, and he also has lived experience. And we've got Dan Agape, who is an Indigenous person, I believe from an Ontario First Nation. He also has lived experience. So I would love to know the specific objection that Ms. Gondek has to an addiction psychiatrist, as well as 2 individuals, including one First Nation individual who has lived experience in helping us deal with the mental health and addiction crisis. Because quite frankly, I think that this is just political grandstanding. We need to work together. It's part of the reason why we have put a significant investment in Calgary and Edmonton, where we've announced that we're putting in 100 new police officers. We want to make sure that those officers are dedicated to doing the things that residents tell us they want them to do, which is walking the beat, having presence, being there on transit. That's one of the reasons. But we also need to make sure that we're calibrating correctly so that those who have mental health and addiction issues are able to get connected to the services and resources they need. And that's the reason we're doing it. I'm not apologizing for it. And I think it's unfortunate that she's mischaracterizing how this all came down. I thought that we were working together on this. We should be working together, because I think Albertans and Calgarians expect us to work together on public safety. It's the #1 job of government.
Premier, did you want to address his second?
Oh, the second one.
I'm still here.
Yes, I know. It will be all I would ask is just if you would report it in a balanced way. Obviously, there's some people who are mischaracterizing the position that we've taken, and I think I gave an explanation. The explanation is that we are using chartered surgical centers that are fully funded. No one will ever pay out of pocket for their for needed medical care. No one will ever pay out of pocket to see a doctor, but we simply cannot close these facilities down and risk losing 60,000 surgeries a year as capacity. That would be irresponsible.
All right, next question.
Alex Dollywell, Rebel News. Should the UCP secure re-election on May 29th, could the party look at extending the fuel tax suspension until the end of 2024, given the Bank of Canada has said inflation will continue to be a problem well into 2025, and given the federal government will increase the carbon tax another $15 next April?
You know, we want to gauge it on the basis of what our oil and gas prices are doing, because part of the reason for the fuel tax reprieve was that as prices are high, it means that we get more revenues, which gives us the revenue that we need to be able to offset an increase in cost. If prices go down, it means that there'll be some moderation on that. We wanted to make sure at least people knew the certainty from now until the end of the year. And if we're reelected, we've already demonstrated that we're prepared to act quickly if we feel that there's an affordability issue that needs to be gauged. So we'd make that decision at that time.
Go ahead.
Josh Aldridge, Calgary Herald Post Media. Just want to follow up on Rick's first question. You talked about the need to work together with the city on these types of matters. But what does this type of move by City Council do to that relationship between the city and the province? And what kind of repercussions are there for them? Not just saying we have questions or standing up saying we don't want this policy, but voting down policy that would enable the Amendments Act, the Police Amendments Act, to move forward in synchronicity with the city? Well,
I think they're playing games. I mean, it is an election. I think that there are some ideological voices on that council. It's no secret that the NDP and their fellow travelers want to defund the police, and it's no secret that we are in a position that we're in right now because it has demoralized our frontline officers, and they haven't felt supported. And they are supported by us. That is the message we are trying to send, is that policing is provincial jurisdiction. We will do whatever it takes to make sure our streets stay safe, and we are not going to listen to the ideological voices who want to defund the police. We're going to go forward, and we're going to make sure that we put the safety and security of Calgarians first.
Go ahead, Adam.
Hi there, Adam McVicker with Global News. I do have a question about healthcare, but more on the rural side, addressing a certain situation happening in High River right now. A group of physicians have put out an open letter regarding some staffing challenges there with family physicians, and in turn there are some issues staffing in the hospital as well, in emergency departments. I was just wondering what are your thoughts on that situation and what can be done to address situations like that, especially access to healthcare in rural communities.
I mean, I think there were 30 docs who signed that letter, which gives you some indication of just how big the demand is on our specialists, that we can have 30 specialists in a community as small as High River, which is 15,000 people, and that there still is a lack of doctors doing primary care. This has been a challenge across the entire country. We've seen it with the number of students who are opting to take family practice. It's down to 10%. And this is why we have to be innovative in how we're going to address the primary care challenges. I know that Dr. John Cowell is working on expanding the hours for primary care, because that's one thing that will also take the pressure off hospitals if doctors would open their practices later into the evening and on weekends. And the health minister was in the process of negotiating a contract with nurse practitioners. Nurse practitioners are trained almost to the level of family doctors, and I think what you'll see in the future is a lot more team practices, so that doctors are able to do the high-value work at hospital and specialties and be called in on complicated cases. But then the team practice will allow for nurse practitioners, LPNs, physiotherapists, dietitians, psychologists, and other health professionals to be able to make sure every person is able to have the care that they need, and that those clinics can stay open longer. That's the reason why we signed the deal that we did with the doctors for 25% of doctors to be under an alternative payments model within the next 5 years. And as part of the reason why we have put $2 billion into primary care is that every single person needs to be able to have access to those primary care resources led by a family doctor. And so we are well underway on that.
Go ahead.
Hi, Sean Polzer, Western Standard. What is your reaction when the NDP compares you to certain historical tyrants when they have their own candidates, Rod Loyola, parading in Communist Party rallies and posting videos extolling the virtues of people like Stalin, Castro, and Chavez.
I think people need to take a look at that candidate. I mean, if he's going to march in a communist parade, he has to argue to his constituents why they should elect him. I personally don't think that people want communism in this country. I think that they want freedom. I think that they want to be able to be free to live their lives in their own way. They want to be able to support their families, have a good job. They want free enterprise. They want to make sure that they're able to work in their communities, practice their faith in their own way. Those are the things I stand for. I've always stood for those things. And so people can mischaracterize me all they want, but I think that Mr. Loyola's actions kind of speak for themselves, and he'll have to answer to his constituents on that.
Okay, we'll take two more from the floor, and then I have to hit the phones.
Rachel Emmanuel, True North. The United Conservative Party is accusing 3 labor unions of promoting the Alberta NDP without disclosing donors, which would be a violation of the Elections Finances and Contributions Disclosure Act. In a letter to Elections Alberta, the UCP is also accusing 3 labor unions of colluding with the Alberta NDP to exceed contributions and expense limits. Premier, I'm wondering what your comment on this story is. Obviously, the election is now well underway. Are you concerned how this could impact voters if this matter is not resolved quickly and if the allegations, in fact, turn out to be true?
It's part of the reason why we wrote a second letter to Elections Alberta under Dustin Van Voot, our executive director, wrote a letter on May the 2nd flagging this as a concern. And we've written a follow-up letter because there's now an additional union that is an affiliate of the NDP that is also engaging in election advertising. And if you look at the elections rules, they're written in that way for a reason. The whole purpose behind the change to election financing was to take big money from big business and big unions out of the political process. Every political party is supposed to get individual donations, and third-party advertisers have strict rules for how they're supposed to get their money and how much they're allowed to spend. The problem with the NDP is they're intermingled. They've got affiliates that serve on their provincial executive. They have affiliates who get automatic delegate status to set policy. They have affiliates who get a 25% share of the vote over who becomes leader of the party. I mean, if you don't think that that's some kind of conflict, that you've got public sector unions choosing who the leader of the NDP is going to be when you have to go into negotiations, how is that going to work? And then on top of that, they appear to not be reading the Elections Act to know that they're not allowed to also have register as third-party advertisers. So I hope that they go and get some legal advice and become in compliance with the law. And if not, I hope that we hear some judgment from Elections Alberta on this.
Go ahead, Tim.
Hey, Tim with CTV. Thanks for taking my question. You say you're not selling off Alberta's hospitals. Obviously, the people that just crashed this press conference don't believe that. So I'm just curious to know, to all the Albertans out there, is there a problem with messaging here? What do you think the issue is?
The problem is with lies, that the NDP, every time we get into an election, lies about what it is that we're going to do to terrify people. And then it gets people anxious and worried about what's going to happen. What we have done is established chartered surgical centers that just look at our history, look what we have done. It's all transparent, and what they do is they are totally integrated within our healthcare system. No one can jump the queue, no one can pay out of pocket, no one will ever pay out of pocket for a family doctor or for a hospital service. But it's important for us to be able to fast track and get more surgeries done for cataracts, for retinal surgery, for knees and hips, for shoulders, spine surgery. These are the kind of surgeries that are being done. So the NDP would cancel all that, apparently. They would shut down these surgical centers, and they would stop 60,000 surgeries from taking place overnight. That would double the amount of wait lists that we have. I think that's irresponsible. And so if that's their position, they should talk about how they're going to defend it. But I feel very confident that the approach that we've taken has been very prudent and very wise. We're expanding the surgical capacity within our existing hospitals. They do 80% of the surgeries, which is fantastic. They're going to continue doing 80% of the surgeries within Alberta Health Services. But to augment so that we can clear the waiting list faster, we are using these chartered surgical centers led by surgeons, totally integrated in the system. No one's paying out of pocket. So I hope that is clear to people, that what we're doing is to make sure that we can get their care faster and more cost effectively, so that we can end up doing more surgeries. I think that should be the goal of every government.
All right, let's go to the operator, or the caller, please. Operator, first caller.
Karen Levitt, Toronto Star.
Yeah, hi. Danielle, you've spent a lot of the campaign pushing back on this notion that Albertans might have to pay for necessary health care under a UCP government. But earlier this week, your Deputy Premier, Nathan Neudorf, was musing at a forum that Albertans would have to think twice about an ER visit if they had to pay for it. This was a video, I'm sure you've seen it, put out by the NDP. I just want to know how you reconcile this mixed messaging going on here between yourself and Mr. Neudorf.
Look, the party, myself, our cabinet, our caucus is clear. No one will pay out of pocket to visit a family doctor or for necessary hospital services. I know from time to time people will throw ideas out there and we'll begin a conversation. I, of course, have done that through the course of my 27 years in public life, but you have to judge people based on what we do. And we have been in the position for 4 years. And what we have done is expand surgical capacity, reduce wait times, made sure that we have $2 billion invested in primary care so that we have those alternatives for people to be able to see a medical professional. This is where the real challenge is right now, is that every single person needs to have access to primary care. Because if we don't have primary care practitioners available in the evenings and on weekends, it puts extra pressure on the hospital. And I'm assuming that was part of the context of his discussion as well. Our solution is to invest in primary care. Is to make sure that everybody has access to a medical professional when they need it so that we can take the pressure off the hospital system. And it's the reason why I signed a $24 billion agreement with the federal government. There is more dollars coming into the system. And one of the joint areas that we want to work on is making sure that we expand out primary care. So no one needs to worry about paying for a family doctor or paying for hospital services. We have the money, we have the ability to recruit. We are all focused on doing this, and we know that we need to make healthcare the best in the entire country, and I think we're well on our way.
Next caller, please.
Terry Reid, CBC.
Yes, hi, good afternoon, and thank you very much for taking my call. This is in relation to the wildfires. We've been hearing from farmers, ranchers, Métis, and Indigenous communities talking about a slow, late response by the province on these fires, many feeling that they're very much on their own. At the same time, we have farmers and ranchers that are being kept from their land by mandatory evacuation orders during calving season, a pretty critical time out on the farm. So, again, I'm going to break the rules a bit, double-barreled question. How do you answer for the lack of early ground support? And what do you say to those who are asking to violate evacuation restrictions so that they can protect their homes and their livestock?
Well, I would just hope that in your story you give some context to where we're normally at by this time in the fire season. By this time in the fire season, the average for the past 5 years of hectares burned between January and May is 546 hectares. In the same period, we're at 410,441 hectares. So the ability to be able to scale up 1,000-fold almost in the space of 10 days, I think is pretty extraordinary. I think that our emergency responders have done an amazing job. They put in the request very early on May the 2nd through the Canada Interagency Forest Fire Centre. And that's the reason why we have crews that are already arriving. They're arriving from British Columbia, Ontario, Quebec, Alaska, and other jurisdictions. They're continuing to ask for more. It's why when the Prime Minister returned from the coronation, he made it a priority to talk to me about additional resources that could be brought to bear. And within 12 hours, he had already given, or 24 hours, he'd already given the go-ahead to the armed forces to work with us on deploying under wildfire. And so that's part of the reason why they're being deployed to Grand Prairie, Fox Creek, and Drayton Valley. We were pleased to discover PPCLI has 300 fire-trained personnel in their armed forces. I don't think we knew that before. It's also the reason why we are doing a call out for individuals who have expertise in fighting forest fires in the private sector, because there are many certainly in our industrial operations and in the north that have firefighting expertise. So we've done that call out as well. And we've got a little bit of a reprieve here with some of the weather that has gone our way. But let's be very clear, this is extraordinary. This type of weather event it has a less than 1% chance of happening in any given year. And there was a very similar type of event that happened, I believe, in California in 2021. So this is, I don't think, anything anybody expected. And the fact that our first responders have been able to respond as quickly as they have is amazing. They'll continue doing that. And there's going to be a lot of work on this. Because it started off this way, I suspect that this is going to be with us for several weeks, if not months. So you can ask some more detailed questions at 3 o'clock today. I've also, our cabinet has also given direction to the Emergency Operations Center that people need to be able to return if they have animals to take care of. And so we want to make sure that people know what the risk is so that they can mitigate risk, but people need to be able to manage their animals. And so if there are certain cases where that is not occurring, I would ask for people to call 310-4455, because we want to make sure that we're facilitating that access. We know how important it is. There is enormous number of animals in this area that is potentially impacted. If I can find the stats on that, I can tell you a little bit later. I might have to look it up in my phone here. But maybe I should ask you this, so you don't have to wait for me. You can contact the Ministry of Agriculture, because they have done an assessment of the number of farms within this area, and it's literally hundreds of thousands of animals that are potentially impacted because the hectarage is so huge, 410,441. So we are being responsive. We understand that operators and producers need to be able to return home. The fact of the matter is there are still 23 fires that are out of control. And with the change in wind, that can shift the danger at any given moment. So we want to be honest with people about what the danger is, but knowing that we're working very hard to make sure that we get the resources where they're needed to be able to address it. But it's going to be a hard weekend. We're going to have a heat wave from Friday all the way through to Tuesday. Those hot temperatures are going to make it even more difficult. And I just want people to be prepared for that, that we are by no means clear of this.
All right, operator, let's go to the last caller.
Lisa Johnson, Edmonton Journal. Hi, thanks for taking my question. I wanted to go back to your earlier comment, Ms. Smith. You spoke about the UCP's surgical initiative involving chartered surgical centers. I'm not sure exactly what the question was that you were responding to that with, but I'm hoping that you can just clarify something here, because I'm a little bit confused. Talking about chartered surgical centers is a different kettle of fish, it seems, than what you were referring to in that 2021 video where you talked about pathway to privatizing acute care and emergency hospitals. That's what you were talking about in that video. So you're saying this is not a messaging issue, that the NDP is lying. I'm hoping you can just clearly tell Albertans, if you would put up acute care hospital operations, including emergency departments, to private bidders, is that something that you would consider, if elected, why or why not? Or are you saying you would only contract out surgeries specifically?
We will contract out surgeries where it makes sense, and we will not privatize the hospitals that are under the umbrella of Alberta Health Services. You should judge me based on what I do. I hope people are understanding this, that what I do is the measure of what I'm going to do as Premier. And the first thing I did as Premier was to bring Dr. John Cowell in as official administrator so that we could improve performance at Alberta Health Services. Everybody wants Alberta Health Services to be high performing, but they needed some executive leadership direction. And I can tell you that working with Mauro Kias, who is the Chief Executive Officer of Alberta Health Services, we made him permanent because he's doing a tremendous job. He understands how the priorities of government. He's made incredible strides on reducing surgical wait times, expanding surgical capacity, reducing hospital wait times. He has done an incredible job of overseeing and managing the ambulance services so that they are available in the times of crisis. I mean, here's a prime example. We had to move over 200 patients from evacuation facilities. We were able to do that because we have a CEO working with his executive team who has managed to free up some additional surge space so that we can handle that change in patient load. Plus, through the various means that we have used to free up our ambulances, they become available for this kind of emergency work. Like that, when I first came in, we were looking at ambulance lineups of 15 to 20 deep at most of our acute care facilities. We don't have that anymore. So people should know that I have great confidence, having seen what I've seen over the last 6 months, that we've got the right leadership team there, and that we're going to just continue getting better and better at delivering the services through our acute care hospitals. And if we need to continue doing some contracting out of services that can be done in charter surgical centers, that we'll consider doing that. But I think that people should feel a lot of confidence in what they see at Alberta Health Services.
All right, thanks everybody.